Welcome to QUATERNITEA's first episode. If you want some hot teas and issues, stay tuned and keep watching.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
So, how are you? Kumusta naman kayo?
Okay lang naman kami.
Okay lang. Medyo excited nga eh.
That's nice. Grabe. This will be your very first time to try this kind of content, which is video podcast.
True. Content creator yan. Pero, this is so new. This is so refreshing and at the same time, super nakakakaba because we'll be tackling different issues.
And hindi lang siya basta-basta issue. For today's episode, we'll be talking about a popular issue here in the Philippines.
So if you want to know and learn more, just keep on watching for a wonderful takeaway.
Yes, but before we start, let's introduce ourselves first. I am Cath.
I am Karl.
I am Brigette.
And I am Magic
And this-
Mike. And this is
Quaternity.
Quaternity. Quaternity is a kwentuhan session where we bring the hottest teas and issues about business, politics, career, or anything intriguing and exciting to talk about. Podcastics, grab your drinks and chips, and without further ado, let's bring out the tea.
Alright. For today's hot topic, we have ethical issues in business in terms of hiring employees here in the Philippines.
Wow, it's indeed an intriguing topic at this time.
Well, that's true, especially now that we're currently in a pandemic. And since a lot of people lost their job, they are currently finding a new one to support their own families.
Yeah, indeed. Getting a job you truly desire is not just always a piece of cake, diba? Parang challenges are always present and dilemmas often arise. It's just so ironic that the applicants need to undergo from a lengthy process of hiring just to encounter several ethical issues in the business world.
Cohort concept is really a thing, no? Just like in some cases in different companies in terms of hiring, especially in the screening stage, where issues such as bilingual ability is a hot topic. Well, have you ever heard about certain cases involving these unethical issues?
Ako, I know a few, pero it's not that broad. Parang limited din yung information na alam ko regarding that issue.
Likewise, parang medyo shallow din yung alam ko, but I really think it's a common issue here in our country.
Yes, mismo. Since most of you are somehow clueless, then let me tell you about these unethical issues. Para lang naman siyang language discrimination, which refers to the unfair treatment of an individual based solely upon the characteristics of their speech such as accent, size of vocabulary, and syntax. Because language discrimination is a form of national origin discrimination, the same body of law prohibits it. This type of discrimination generally makes it illegal to prefer one language over another, though there are many exceptions. The driving force behind the illegality of language discrimination is whether or not an individual was hired, fired, required to speak one language over another, o kaya naman speak one language over another for discriminatory purposes.
So parang it happens when you disregard an applicant for a job position despite his or her good merits just because of their proficiency in speaking? Or kaya naman if the language he or she knows is only limited?
Yes. For example, a new customer service position opens up in your company and you apply for the job because it pays a higher salary and more regular work hours. Even though you are fluent in English, you were told by your supervisor that you cannot be considered for the position because you speak with a Spanish accent. However, another employee who speaks with a British accent was interviewed for the position and was hired right away. So from there, we can clearly say that the applicant who has a Spanish accent was discriminated.
Yes, I really think it's unfair for those who are doing their best to get a job, especially those who have a good qualities and experiences na nababaliwala ng mga employers just because they're not proficient enough in speaking. For example, mas hinahar yung magagaling mag-English as compared to those who only speak Carabao English in several companies dito sa Pilipinas.
Yeah, pero siguro, but if you look at the other side of the picture, parang we can also recognize its pros. Kasi diba, of course, in the company's perspective, or as a future owner of a company, for example, I'll also put into consideration the bilingual ability of my future employees. Kasi kunyari, I have a branch, a well-known restaurant in Paris. And in that case, parang I'll choose the one who knows how to speak both English and French. Mainly because it can contribute to the convenience of the business. And also, parang it's for the sake of the potential customers. Kasi yung staff ko, they would be able to understand and converse with them properly.
You have a point there. Since bilingual abilities really matter in some or most of the companies, because language is an important aspect in verbal communication within a corporation. It can lead to a proper understanding and communication inside the company, and there is a high chance to properly execute the given task for every team and department.
I also observe an ethical issue sa hiring wherein physical appearance is a very special thing. Parang you have an advantage or you're a few steps ahead if you look like Aphrodite or Apollo. And for me, it's too much kasi aside from discriminating them, you're also hurting their feelings and taking away their confidence. First of all, it's not their fault na pinanganak sila ng hindi kagandahan or kagwapuhan. Second, who are we to judge them if we ourselves aren't perfect? Yung iba nga dyan it's their dream job since childhood, and then sa isang iglap, all their efforts to excel in the chosen field will vanish just because of that one thing that they can't even control. This is because of some company statements saying that they prefer good-looking faces since it's more presentable to customers in a way that they will easily attract and encourage them to patronize the product they're selling or the service they're offering.
Well, siguro I can get the point of those companies kasi let's just say, yung mga stores sa mall na nagbebenta ng mga beauty products, I think it would not be convincing for a store to market their products effectively if the personnel or staff themselves don't possess the beauty they're referring to as the effect of the product. Let's be realistic here. You won't buy a whitening cream if the one selling it isn't white or if she has a darker complexions.
Yes, parang it's an important factor also to generate profit since it's an effective tool in marketing. That's why they're choosing the most appropriate person to advertise their products to make it more convincing and appealing to the viewers.
Well, nakikets ko naman yung point mo, Karl. Parang it's like the pros of considering the physical appearance of the applicants para din sa betterment ng company. However, parang we can't deny the fact kasi na it's a form of discrimination against the aspiring employees. Parang why is it that if flight stewardess or mga flight attendant, they have to adhere to a certain height requirement? Why is it that models, most models being hired in the Philippines are more petite or parang mga long-legged? Parang does the appearance entail skills that can help in accomplishing the job excellently? Well, the answer is clearly no. We can't always say that if a person is beautiful, parang she's already responsible for working. We can't also say that if a person is handsome, he's already industrious and kind. Perhaps personalities and abilities generally don't depend on physical appearance, and so are skills.
I even heard sa mga matatanda na kapag wala ka daw itsura, wala kang mararating, especially if gusto mong maging artista, reporter, or even sa teatro. You should either be very beautiful and handsome, or not beautiful and handsome at all. Those who are in the middle are actually being ignored.
That's true. I often hear that from my relatives, no? And it's really alarming to hear that kind of perspective. Parang, we're already in the 21st century and here they are still being racist, sexist, and all. And besides, there's even an act which prohibits discrimination based on race, sex, color, national origin, and religion. Ito yung Title 7 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Kaya, parang we should also be following the laws in hiring because basically, it's the right thing to do.
Yes, kasi for me, hindi naman ibig sabihin na pangit ang isang tao, hindi na siya pwedeng mag-ayos or maging presentable tingnan sa customers. Kaya nga meron tayong tinatawag na makeup, beauty care, or beauty products na pwedeng makatulong na maging presentable ang isang tao. Isa pa, kung ako ang tatanungin tungkol sa mga applicants, as long as they possess skills, nice character or values, and sufficient knowledge about sa work, they're more than enough to be hired as my employees.
Kaya it's very important talaga to consider this second process, which is testing or administering tests before hiring employees, so that human resources will be able to measure their skills and know whether they're really suitable for the job or not. Also, this would be a great help to assess what kind of job or position would perfectly fit the employee. Through this, the appropriateness of the job to the applicants will be thoroughly reviewed. There are actually a lot of pre-employment tests being done. First, we have a cognitive test, which measures the intellectual ability of a person, such as thinking, reasoning, and remembering. Second is credit check, which determines the credibility and capacity of the employees in paying debts. And lastly is background check that reviews the records of the applicants, whether they have criminal or violence records that can affect their performance.
But do you think that some tests are really necessary and ethical?
Well, for some instances, I can say that testing is not necessary or inappropriate in hiring. Pero depende kasi ito sa trabaho na papasukan mo. Siguro, if we're talking about work in construction site, it's not that important for a person to be undergo from a cognitive test. Since as long as kaya mong magbuhat and alam mo ang mga dapat gawin sa construction, there's a possibility for you to be hired. Because it's a mismatch in the test being conducted and the job being offered. You don't need much skills in reasoning and thinking if your job is shoveling and mixing cement. And not to be rude or what, pero kadalasan kasi sa kanila ay walang formal na edukasyon and training as well. Pero para sa akin, hindi na kailangan matest ang kanilang para sa akin hindi na kailangan matest yung kanilang mental ability. Kung competent and fit naman sila sa trabaho. And also, minsan, construction workers are hired in a referral basis. This kind of work talaga needs more physical strength. That's why I think I would be more appropriate if the test to be conducted is a medical checkup to know if someone has asthma or any illness that can hinder the process or the progress of work and put them into danger.
There's also an exemption for a certain test to become unethical. Let's put it this way. Your employer or potential employer can treat your English or any language proficiency or the ability to speak or write in the required language as long as it tests all applicants. If the employer or potential employer denies someone an employment opportunity because of that specific language proficiency, the employer must have a legitimate non-discriminatory reason.
And I think that there are also tests which are important to conduct for the sake of the employees themselves, as well as the employers, such as the pre-employment drug testing. This issue actually has come forth of whether or not it is unethical.
Yeah. I think there's a need to administer that kind of test, specifically dun sa mga workers in a company vehicle. Kasi I think it should be a requirement for the sake also of everyone. Say for example, or say for an instance, an accident was to occur while the employee was under the influence of drugs. And of course, yung company, they would not be covered under their insurance. And aside from that, kasi may nabasa akong article, yung kay Hoops. Sabi niya, drug abuse daw is really prohibited since it can cause multiple accidents. And if they happened, of course, this might endanger also the lives of the employees. And parang it can also cost the company thousands or even millions to be able to fix this mess.
Dagdag ko lang pala, testing should be done not only to one or few applicants, but to everyone to ensure justice and equality. And only specific tests should be conducted according to its job specification.
Grabe. Ang dami na pala nating napag-usapan, starting from hiring itself and yung mga process such as yung screening and testing. So, let me share naman with you the third and last process in the entire employment or the hiring process, which is interviewing or conducting interviews. Actually, there's a variety of interviewing techniques in conducting interviews. Parang it can either be structured or unstructured, and yung questions, it can also be asked as an open-ended or closed-ended questions. So yung structured interviews, it consists of a specific questions, a specific set of questions that will be asked to the applicants. So this technique makes it easier to evaluate and compare interviewees fairly on who's more excellent, since parang the same questions were asked to each one of them. And on the contrary naman, yung unstructured interviews, yun yung mga interviews na walang specific agenda, pero it rather allows the applicant to set the pace of the interview. So yung technique na to, parang it helps naman to explore more of the applicant's skills and experience. However, parang this can cause difficulties in ranking applicants, mainly because the set of questions asked to them are different from each other.
Apart from that, I think there are also a lot of types of interviewing that the interviewer can choose in.
Yeah, that's correct. Parang, actually, we have three the screening interview, the phone interviews, and the in-person interview. So, dun muna tayo sa screening interview. Ito yung first interview to be done if the institution doesn't start with interviews where multiple candidates are screened. So, basically, it determines if the applicant has the qualifications needed to the job for which the company is hiring. Yung second naman is phone interviews. So, yeah, from the name itself, phone interviews, gagamit siya ng technology. So, it's a very easy way actually to narrow the pool or numbers of aspiring employees who will be invited for the in-person interviews. So, it makes sure that before you decide to invest or allot further time in them, they possess skills that would match the job description. And yung pang-third is the in-person interview, which dig further into culture fit and work style. So, naka-classify din siya into several interviews. Yung first interview, second interview, or it is the more in-depth interview with the applicant you originally interviewed in the first interview. Pangatlo is yung third interview, final interview, dining interview. Parang this is an interview that reviews communication and interpersonal skills as well as your table manners in a relaxed environment. And yung last is yung panel interview. Sabi nila it is the most effective one since not only one would criticize the applicants, but parang there will be a group of people which shows a broader perspective that helps you or helps the hiring process to avoid bias and favoritism. So, sabi nila, parang ideally, this panel interview must consist 3 to 4 persons, I guess. Kasi sabi nila, I've read na parang 5 persons and above may look so intimidating that can affect the interview of the employees.
But for me, I think the technique to be used may depend on which is more suitable to the position being filled, the business culture and the industry itself, and the type of information the interviewer wants to know.
Yeah, exactly. May point ka, Mike, no? Parang even questions have a difference. Actually, meron na naman tayong tatlo. We have behavioral, competency-based, and situational questions. So, yung behavioral, ito yung mga questions that primarily review the candidate's experience, mga personal attributes nila, and yung job-related skills. While yung competency-based questions naman, it somehow measures the applicant's job performance and yung attitude nila towards work. And then yung situational questions, this is wherein employers look at how the candidate would respond given the situation described.
Yun na yun. I guess we all experienced these questions naman, di ba?
Oo nga, no? I think last year yun, or last year. Basta, during mock job interview.
Yes, there were even 3 questions that would really make our heart throbs talaga, di ba?
Oo, no. I still even remember those situations given by the interviewer that really drained my brain cells. Grabe. That time, hindi ko talaga alam if I should be honest or i-sugarcoat ko yung mga answers ko para lang ma-impress yung mga yung nag-interview sa akin. So parang that was one of the hardest moments in my life, actually.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, sige. So going back na, yung questions to be asked really are indeed very important to refrain from offending the applicants and also to damage the business reputation. Kasi irrelevant questions should be prohibited and avoided entirely. May it be directly or indirectly, like those that relate to age, sex, gender, race, religion, pregnancy, marital status, color, national origin, basta marami pang iba. And even yung mga health status and educational background, and even yung disabilities nung aspiring employees. So in addition, the interviewer should not also ask questions about arrest that hindi naman that did not result naman in a conviction. So it's information needed about an applicant might fall into any of those categories. The interviewer should make sure that the question relates to a bona fide occupational qualification or yung nire-require ng federal or state law to be asked.
But bona fide occupational qualification is also an issue in terms of hiring, right?
Yes. Oo, siguro especially when declaring that qualifications such as gender, age, or religion must relate to an essential job duty. But unlike kasi wrongful discrimination, this is allowable by the federal law since it is reasonably necessary to carry out a particular job function in the normal operation of an employer's enterprise. For example, churches were illegally allowed to hire members of the same religion and reject clergy from the other churches or religions. And then, pilots also are being mandated to retire at a certain age to ensure the safety of the passengers, since the older they get, parang the higher the tendency for them not to be safe and flying planes, which is actually a pros in terms of bona fide occupational qualifications.
Oh, but there are some questions that really shows discrimination, especially in interviews, di ba? Like the interviewer is asking irrelevant questions, which sometimes make the interviewees uneasy or not comfortable anymore with the setup.
Yeah, that's true. Unang-una na dyan nga, yung sabi ko, kanina, yung discrimination itself. Like, asking the applicants about their age, gender, or ethnic heritage, political affiliations, and even yung mga clubs or organizations na kinabibilangan nila is a bit off. Actually, meron din parang law about that, yung Age Discrimination and Employment Act of 1967, which prohibits that kind of act. And parang like, what's the connection between these questions and the job they're applying for, diba? Why would you ask them, or why would you ask an aspiring newscaster, for example, if they are married or not? And why would you ask an aspiring actor if he already has a child or not? And also, parang why would you ask an aspiring teacher about his religious beliefs and life? And also, kunyari, there's an aspiring manager, and parang why would you ask him or her regarding his ethnic heritage? Like, parang, would this even affect their job performances? So, kung ako tatanungin, I think no, it wouldn't affect really, kasi it's also very unethical to throw questions like this just to satisfy yung curiosity nung nag-interview. Except nga if there's a bona fide occupational qualification, just like what I mentioned earlier.
Some are even judging the interviewees right after entering the interview room. Well, let's admit the fact that the very first thing a hiring manager notices is the applicant's appearance, their complexion, height, size, shape, and physical features.
Yep, tama ka dyan. And before they are given the opportunity to showcase what they've got, there's already a connotation or idea implanted in the interviewer's mind that can affect the whole interview.
Yeah. Actually, nakakasad, no? Pero it's reality kasi. And guess what? Some really crossed the line kasi ato, based on my parang personal experience, nakwento lang din naman sa akin to. Kasi I have a family friend. Seaman siya before, but since he needs to go back here in the Philippines, parang he resigned from his job and naghanap na lang siya ng bago. So, during the interview, since na-mention niya nga na seaman siya before, parang yung interviewer, tinanong siya, sabi niya, tinanong siya if nagkaroon na ba siya ng AIDS or kung HIV positive daw ba siya. And of course, yung family friend naman namin na-offend talaga kasi parang yung question na yun, parang hindi naman akma doon sa ina-applyan niyang trabaho. So yun, he ended up finding a new job instead.
Grabe naman yun. Super vocal si ko yung interviewer. Walang filter ang bibig.
And super irrelevant naman kasi to think that even yun, papakialaman pa, when in fact, having a disease won't hinder you from working unless it's a contagious and severe.
Tama. Ay, meron pa pala. Kasi, I have a friend. Daming kwento. I have a friend kasi. I have a friend na parang putol to Parang ganito yung parang inborn talaga. Putol yung yung pinky finger niya. So, she's finding a part-time job to support her studies. So, nag-apply siya sa isang food chain or mga restaurant dyan sa Naga. And almost same lang yung sabi sa kanya. Sabi ng interviewer, ano yan? Putol daliri mo? Parang, I'm sorry, pero I think hindi ka bagay dun sa trabaho kasi nga, you're serving people, so you should be pleasant and presentable and also has a complete fingers. Kasi nga, parang having disability daw, like that, will hinder her to do her work. So sabi ng interviewer, tatawagan na lang daw siya if meron pang vacant.
We're so rude naman. Even disabilities are being questioned. So unprofessional. They should at least give opportunity to the disabled to let them venture on their own.
There's even a law about it. The Wide-Ranging Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, which protects qualified individuals with disabilities from discrimination in employment.
Usong-uso rin yung pati lifestyle mo, tinatanong like if mahilig ka daw mag video games or are you drinking liquor and smoking or taking drugs.
I think it's too unfair not to hire someone who has lots of tattoos and someone who's smoking as a teacher.
I agree. No, kasi we know that teachers or professors should be a role model for the sake of their students. But again, they're also human. Like, they can also appreciate art and have tattoos. And they can even smoke whenever they're stressed because of workloads. So parang okay lang if nasa labas naman ng institution. So parang bakit naman papakialaman pa yun nila? Kasi they also have a life outside the school and their lifestyle won't make them less as a human, and it wouldn't lessen their capability to teach. Saka their lifestyle talaga, feeling ko, it should be disregarded.
Yes, some interviewers also misled the interviewers in the job description. They tend to lie about the pertinent information just to properly advertise the company and convince the applicants to work with them. Yung iba naman, they tend to exaggerate the benefits to be claimed in the company to entice candidates.
Yung iba naman, they change the job's responsibilities after hiring, which is wrong. Kasi interview pa lang, you should already be clear on what job is all about, what its scopes and roles are. But of course, here in the Philippines, most of the employees who experience this just choose to keep with the demands instead of giving up the position because of their fear to be jobless, despite the additional jobs and responsibilities and low wage.
And meron din naman mga employers that would require you to pay for an application fee just to enrich their own purse. And in an indisciplined country like ours, this situation is rife. Or kaya naman just because tinatamad na yung mga employers to follow the very long procedures of hiring, they just opted to beat the deadline given by the company by means of settling with incompetent candidates.
Yeah, uso rin sa atin yung hijacking employees from competitors, di ba? Parang just because of the company's desperation to defeat the competitor, parang they set up to hire the other competitor's most valuable employees by offering them a larger amount of money and some incentives.
Grabe talaga ang nadadala ng inggit, no? It drives you to become an ethical and a liar.
We also have extortion pala. This happens when recruiters hold private conversation together with the job applicants to ask for a specific amount of money for them to be their white horse. And for some corrupt individuals, they tend to choose the individuals who literally passed the job and told them that he's the one who decided on the hiring process, so the applicants will hurriedly pay without knowing that they're going to get the job even without the money involved.
Yeah, that's also one. And also, the very famous nepotism here in the Philippines, wherein the interviewer will instantly accept the applicants in the job position regardless if they're qualified or not, since relatives mo sila. Ito yung mga kapamilya natin na ang daming hanash if hindi sila napagbibigyan. So, parang para less hassle, ibibigay mo na lang sa kanila yung trabaho even though it will take you to pull off some strings.
And of course, if may nepotism, we also have cronyism. This is when you favor applicants who are your friends even if they're not suitable for the job. Si mga madi, si padi, natin na humihingi ng favor para ipasok sa trabaho. Kasi kapag hindi, nako, ibabalik nila lahat yung mga naitulong nila sa'yo. Sumbat dito, sumbat doon, equals to friendship over.
Yeah. Oh, although it has pros naman, kasi parang since the relationship you have with them is already established, but then again, its cons are overpowering its pros, which make it unethical to follow. So those are just some of the issues in conducting interviews that can greatly affect the results of the pre-employment process. So that is why the interview is indeed a vital component of the employee selection process. Thus, employers, especially the human resource professionals or yung mga hiring managers, they should also be well aware of the ethics to be followed all throughout the process. So they must know the federal and state prohibitions when asking questions in the interviews para na din ma-avoid nila yung bias and mga claims of discrimination, and also to ensure validity and effectiveness of employment interviews.
Yes, because come to think of it, if the interview has been done effectively, the results will be guaranteed to determine the applicants who are truly fit and deserving of the position they're applying for.
Moreover, for the applicants, they would know whether their expectation about the job would likely be met, so that they will also have the rights to withdraw from applying if they don't like the terms and conditions in the company or institution.
Actually, industry professionals are even debating and arguing regarding the best ways to improve the interview process. So, yung iba, sabi nila, better job matches daw, rooted from a rigorous interview process. Since kahit hiring pa lang, the company is already making so much effort to find employees who are indeed suited for the position, and also yung corporate culture ng company.
On the other hand, the company itself will also benefit both in the short and long term, because the employees they choose who have excellent skills and qualities will help them to deal with the adversities, properly manage stress, work productively as part of the team, and lessen the entire workload.
So, yan. May mga idadagdag pa ba kayo? Or may gusto pa ba kayong mga sabihin na statements, ganyan?
Ako, wala na. Okay na ako.
Okay na.
Okay, and that ends our mini tea talk for today's afternoon. I hope you folks have learned something on what are some of the ethical issues in hiring here in the Philippines, and as well as its pros and cons na rin.
Don't hesitate to drop off if your teas about business, politics, society, and or anything under the sun that really intriguing and exciting to talk about. We'll love to read and include them in our next episodes.
So, guys, if you enjoy our very first episode for this kind of content, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Ring nyo na rin yung bell para updated kayo sa aming mga upcoming videos.
Again, I am Karl.
I am Mike.
I am Brigette.
And I am Cath. We are the podcastics, and this is
QUATERNITEA.
Paternity.
What's for our next tea? Abangan!